Good afternoon, everybody, all patients from all over. I am very pleased today that we can continue our series of webinars. And we have today the representatives of Geron from the United States who will explain us a little bit more about their company. Uh, we uh, uh, we can present you, first of all, Nicole Weidner, who is taking care of patient organizations, and Christian Dinamao, sorry if I got it wrong, who is the Vice President of Medical Affairs. So first of all, thank you very much to both of you that you find some time to be with us. And I just give you, the floor is yours, as we normally say, yeah?
Thank you, Peter. I will share the slides for the team. It's great to be here. Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
And let me go ahead and make that bigger. Can you see the slides okay?
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, thank you very much.
Wonderful. You are welcome.
Great. Okay. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christian Dimaano. I'm the Vice President and Head of Medical Affairs at a company called Geron. Geron is a small biotech company. We're about 220 people. We're located in the United States in the San Francisco Bay Area. We also have an office on the East Coast as well. My background is as a cancer researcher. I myself have had parents who have been impacted by cancer, and so it was my passion area of interest to pursue studying cancer research as a student. And I've been in the industry for over 20 years studying cancer and cancer drug development. So I'm happy to be here with you and happy to share with you a little bit about our company, Geron, and how we're really looking to change the lives of patients who have blood cancers. And so thank you, everyone, for being here today. I think our agenda is very simple. I'm here really just to introduce you to Geron, not only to show you who we are and really what matters to us, but also just to introduce you to the work that we're doing and really how we're focused on treating patients with blood cancers. And I just want to give you a clear sense of what makes us distinct. And what really makes Geron distinct is we have a very singular focus on our scientific approach. And we're really interested in this mechanism called telomerase inhibition. And we're going to talk a lot more about telomerase inhibition as we get through the next series of slides. But we've really been tenacious, in a sense, really focused on telomerase inhibition for over 20 years. And this sort of length of period into research has really made us the expert in telomerase and telomerase inhibition. And it's really exciting that we have now reached the point of becoming a commercial company with a drug approved and on the market. So I think the most important piece of today is that you'll see how our science really is integrated into our mission and how we're really focused on patients. These are patients who have diseases such as myelodysplastic syndrome, myelofibrosis, and we're really looking forward to I guess, sort of helping you to understand what we do and why we do it. And it's really because of the patients. And so, from designing our clinical trials to thinking about how patients may access medications after they're approved, we actually do at Geron listen to patients. So we listen to their experiences, we listen to their needs, we listen to patients as well as their caregivers. And on the lower left here, you'll see the three core principles that guide how we make decisions. And every decision we make is really guided by the impact it has on patients, the impact it has on clinical urgency, and our scientific curiosity. And I think this approach really does keep us focused. It really keeps us focused on what really matters. And our goal is really to ensure that patients are really able to live a longer and a healthier life.
Can I just have one second, please? We have interpretation going on, so it's translated in live. Just could you keep just a little bit slower?
Of course,
In
yeah.
order that they don't get lost. It's first of all the American accent, and then it's for them it's not always easy to keep up. Yeah, but you
Yes,
do perfectly. Just a little bit slower, if possible.
I'll go
Yeah.
slow. No problem. And so the patients are really at the center of what we do, right? And we hope to address these needs first by starting with our science. So if we go to the next slide, and I'll go slow for these next ones. But our science is really based off of telomeres and telomerase. And so these are some terms that I will talk about now in more depth. But telomeres and telomerase are really the foundation of our entire approach. And so when you think of a telomere, telomeres are located at the ends of chromosomes. And telomeres are like the plastic tips or the ends on shoelaces. And so the role of a telomere is to really protect a chromosome from falling apart or fraying, if you will. And the telomeres allow or protect cells from sort of coming apart as they divide. Normally, when the ends of the chromosomes or the ends of these telomeres get too short, cells will stop dividing. But in cancers, there's an enzyme called telomerase, and telomerase keeps the telomeres from getting too short. And so this allows cells to divide over and over and over again. And this is really sort of the fundamental, sort of telltale sign of immortality. And so in many cancers, there is a lot of telomerase. It's very overactive. And so it gives cells this ability to just become immortal. And this discovery was really fundamental, and it was so important that it earned the Nobel Prize in 2009. And Geron has really been working on telomeres and telomerase biology for decades. And this idea of inhibiting telomerase is the foundation for our company. And so this really begs the question of what happens then if you block telomerase? And so on the next slide, I'll go over some of the key pieces of our science. But at the core of our work is really, this sort of simple but powerful question. What if you could stop cancer cells by blocking the activity of an enzyme such as telomerase that fuels their growth? And our team has really been dedicated to pursuing telomerase inhibition to really try to directly target this enzyme that the cancer cells use to keep dividing and dividing and dividing. And so we believe that really tackling cancer at this core mechanism, it really has the potential to change how we can treat blood cancers. And so on the next slide is just a simplified view of how telomerase inhibition works. And so here on the left, under number 1, you'll see that in many cancers, telomerase stays turned on. It's what we'll call overactive. And that's what allows the cancer cells to keep dividing endlessly. And so if you move to number 2 in the middle here, when you block telomerase with a drug that's designed to block telomerase, you remove that signal and the cancer cells can lose their ability to keep dividing. So they'll stop dividing. And number 3 on the right here shows that then over time, those cancer cells will die. And the bone marrow may potentially begin to restore back its healthy blood cells. And so this is the biology, the basic biology our work is really focused on at Geron. And so I'd like to now show how we're putting this telomerase inhibition work into the clinic. And so on the next slide, this is our pipeline. And so our pipeline is really centered on myeloid malignancies. In particular, we are interested in studying two blood diseases, blood cancers. One is called myelodysplastic syndrome, or MDS, and the other is myelofibrosis. And these are two areas of really great unmet medical need, and also where telomerase biology is particularly relevant. And so here on the top line, you'll see at the core of our work is our late stage development program in lower risk myelodysplastic syndrome. There's a study called EMERGE, which had led to the approval of our novel telomerase inhibitor for certain adults, both in the United States and in Europe, with transfusion-dependent anemia. And we're now extending our studies into myelofibrosis. And so you can see the study called IMPACT MF and IMPROVE MF. And we're also exploring additional collaborations as well as investigator-sponsored research in other hematologic malignancies as well. So you can see our body of work here. We have early stage studies really exploring the role for telomerase inhibition in various blood cancers. And then we have later stage work where we'll potentially seek approvals. But it's all grounded in the same science of telomerase inhibition. So now we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to move on to tell you a little bit about the impact that we've been able to make over time. And this is how far our work has really come over the last 25 years. We've had decades of research into telomerase biology, now really translating into a program of clinical trials across MDS and myelofibrosis. We have 200 plus clinical trial sites. We have a broad research network, which includes global sites and multi-phased programs. And about 1,200 patients have been totally engaged in our studies. And so we have a very close engagement with the community, really elevating the needs of patients in the real world and leveraging their experience. And then most significantly, our telomerase inhibitor is now approved. It's now an approved medicine. And this really creates a new option for certain low-risk MDS patients with transfusion-dependent anemia. And again, this has been approved both in the United States and in Europe. But of course, this type of progress, it doesn't just happen overnight. It doesn't happen on our own. It's really driven by the people at Geron. And so I wanted to tell you a little bit about our leadership team at Geron, so that you can get to know who's at the steering wheel of our company. And so our leadership team at Geron really brings a very deep experience across hematology and oncology, research and development, medical affairs, commercial, as well as business operations. And I'll just highlight a couple of people on our senior leadership team here. Harut Samerjian is our president and CEO. He recently joined Geron to lead Geron's next stage of growth and brings with him a very deep experience in hematology oncology. He has led global teams, he has led commercial launches, and we're very happy and excited to have him on board. Joe Eid, who is to Harut's right, is our head of research and development. Joe is a physician. He has decades of experience in oncology, and he has been really focused on the science of telomerase inhibition, really establishing our plan to go from discovery to the clinic. And then to Joe's right is Faye Feller. Faye is our Chief Medical Officer, and I believe Peter will be interviewing Faye, and Faye will have a presentation in a couple of weeks to tell you more about our telomerase inhibitor. But she is the physician who really helped to design and drive the execution of critical clinical trials that led to the approval of our telomerase inhibitor. And so our leadership really guides, the vision by which, we follow. But we all know that the impact really comes from working together. And so on the next slide here, I just wanted to show you how Geron really partners with different stakeholders. And so, we partner with healthcare providers, we partner with researchers, we partner with patient advocacy groups, and with health systems. And all of the goals are the same, to really try to make progress in researching blood cancers. And our focus really are listed here. I've talked about them today. Low risk MDS as well as myelofibrosis are our two key blood cancers that we are interested in, with ongoing exploration in additional myeloid malignancies as well. And it's really through partnerships like these that we try to aim to really elevate the patient voice. We really aim to elevate the caregiver voice, and try to advance education as well as awareness, as well as remove barriers to timely diagnosis and access as well. The way that we advance together isn't just about sort of these programs that we have and our partnerships. It's also about the values that we use to guide us in terms of our work every day. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time to tell you about our values at Geron and what really defines our work here. And so here are our core values at Geron. We have four of them, four guiding principles: pioneering pathways, always authentic, better together, and purpose-driven. And what really defines our work here is being pioneers in our science, telomerase inhibition, being authentic in our relationships, internally as well as externally, and collaborating together because we are better together. We're also always grounded in our purpose. And these values shape the way that we make decisions. They shape the way that we show up for patients, as well as how we show up for each other every day. And when you see our team in action, and if we go to the last slide here, I think these values really come to life. Here you can see members of our team at various functions, activities, conferences, advocacy events. And our team really does show up with energy, with connection, with commitment. And so what makes Geron special isn't just the science, although the science is a big part of it. It's mostly about the people behind it, and the people who are really truly working to make a difference for patients with blood cancer. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and stop and end here. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, thank you very, very much, Jeff. It's a great presentation, giving us information about the company and, all the research which you're doing. And, the first glance, we have many points where we are basically identical, or we have the same ideas. First of all, I'm a PV patient. So I'm also, I know both sides. I know how a patient feels. I have polycythemia vera, and I had it diagnosed 35 years ago. So I'm a lucky person, but my PV is fairly quiet, or let's put it this way, I managed to keep it quiet. I think in any patient of a cancer, the mental force is extremely important. But you think positive and you think for a future. So this is one thing. The second thing is, you're very patient orientated, and this is also for us. Global MPN, we are fully patient orientated. We do only things for patients. We're making webinars, we're making interviews, we're making the seminars, etc. And very often our webinars, they are without physicians. We only have, let's say, 5, 6 patients, and we talk for an hour. We talk for an hour and a half, whatever time it takes. So, which is very useful for patients because they open themselves and they tell what they're feeling, what are their problems. We all have our side effects, our symptoms, etc., which besides of the illness, most time the symptoms are more important than the illness itself. So this is very, very important, really, that we can do that. And it gives us a lot of information from the patients, which again is important because we want to put at your disposal the information, vital information, which we have from patients. Obviously, anonymously and with all within the legal terms. But, if you don't know how a MF patient really feels, what are his real problems, it's very difficult for you that you can make the right medicines, the right treatment. So we want to help you in that, and we're doing that since many years. And for example, my contact with Geron is many years. This goes back to what was her name, Denise Meyer. I normally met her on ASH or AHA, etc. And when it was Jeff and Despina, who we met normally at ASH, and we picked up a few chairs and we did sit up in any places which was available, and we talked about the future. So we know each other for a long time, and we just follow up, and we try to find the ways in order to cooperate. And I can see that basically you're doing the same thing. So I would say that our cooperation should be very fruitful, and I look very much forward to help you in this battle which you're having in order to find treatment for myelofibrosis. Now I'm very glad to hear that you have a completely new way with telomere. It is something which it's not very much known, and I think it's important for the patients. But we know that we are not only having cytoreduction products, but we have products who are trying to get a bit further. So if I'm no physician, I have a patient with experience. It somehow looks to me that we're getting closer and closer to a cure of MF. I know we're still, ages away, but I think you make a very, very big step ahead in that direction. Am I right on that?
I mean, we hope so. Right now, our telomerase inhibitor is in a late-stage clinical trial for myelofibrosis, and we have some data, from not only myelofibrosis but also from our work with myelodysplastic syndromes that are starting to put together, pieces of a very complicated story. But we do have some evidence that our telomerase inhibition really does lead to modifying disease in these blood cancers. And so I think it really puts us on a good path to head in that direction. Our phase 3 study in myelofibrosis actually just completed enrollment. And so we should be knowing the results from that, hopefully within a year or so as we continue to follow our patients. But we'll be able to give you, much more information, not only in the upcoming seminar with our Chief Medical Officer, Faye Feller, but also hopefully within the next year as our data matures. So.
Yeah. Now, very often the patients don't really know how big your efforts are in trying to make this. Since how many years are you working on this whole project? I mean, people, patients, they have no notion for that. I know the answer, but I would very much, if you could explain a little bit, how does it work? You find a molecule, and when you think it might be good, for this and this and this, and then it starts, a preclinical, and then phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, etc. If you could give me a little bit more information, because I think it is very important for patients to know that.
Yeah, it's a great question, Peter. So I will say, in terms of studying telomeres and telomerase, our company has been studying that for decades. It really actually is interesting because the role of telomeres in extending the length of chromosomes had originally been linked to aging and longevity. And so originally, when Geron was first discovered, because of that critical role in extension of chromosomes to elongating life, they looked at a role for telomerase in lengthening life. That has been a really difficult approach for every company, and it was a key discovery that telomerase was overactive in cancers. That then made the company shift its approach to using then telomerase to treat cancer. And so, we've had these many years of studying telomeres and telomerase and really our understanding of how it works in the cells. But this is the first time that telomerase inhibition has been trackable in a sense in a disease. And so it's really exciting for us to see it have impact on cancer patients. Now, to get to your second question about the process of drug discovery, it is a very lengthy process. It is a very expensive process. But first, you have to come up with the concept of how the drug will work. And so that concept of telomerase inhibition, like I said, itself was in being studied for over 10 to 15 years before we even could think about it being used in cancer. But once you have that concept down, or what we call the mechanism of action, and you prove that it affects sort of the cancer in the way that you think it does, you have to show it first in a test tube in what we call the preclinical setting, and then you have to move it into an animal model typically. And so you show that the cancer is reduced in an animal. And there's a whole process of taking that molecule and then really making it the best molecule it can be before it goes into a human. And so we call that lead optimization. And once you have your lead candidate, you go through many rounds of safety testing in animals to make sure that the product would be safe. And then you go through a series of clinical studies in people and humans, smaller studies at the phase 1 level to establish safety, to establish the dosing of the drug. You then move to a slightly bigger sized study in what we call a phase 2 study to ensure the safety and also to really ensure that the dose is the right dose. And then to start to see if there is a signal that your drug is working. But it really isn't until what we call a phase 3 study where there are a lot of patients that are recruited to the study. And there's a process of having a comparison to something else to show that the drug actually works. And so the phase 3 studies are typically the studies, not always, but very typically the studies that lead to an approval of some sort with a regulatory agency.
So it's actually this not only a very lengthy process, it's a risky process because you never know if you will come to an end, and it's a very expensive process.
Yeah, I mean, it's the unfortunate truth of our business. And when I was talking about the earlier stage, studies, even in the lab, at the lab bench, probably 90% of the efforts that the company is doing fail, I will say. So it is a lot of investment for a lot of failed experiments, a lot of investment, and then even failures in early stage clinical trials. So it's the investment in the research and development, I think is really expensive. And so when you do have the ability to bring something to the market in a drug approval, it is very exciting. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's and I admire, as I said, I know your company since many years, and I admire how you just go step by step, And I also like it because you're a small team. We are also a very small team, but very active, very dedicated people. And I think, as you said yourself, it's not a question of a quantity of people; it's more of a quality of people which you have and which is working with you. Now, did you ever look that maybe your product could serve also in polycythemia vera and thrombocythemia? Did you ever think in that? Because I always say that if we could chronify at least PV and ET, we would have much less MF patients. Because we are, as a patients, one of a big red light, which we have always lightened on our back of our mind is, but it can be a mutation from PV into MF. and nobody wants to get MMF. It's it's a bit more dangerous, let's put it this way, than PV. And I have seen, for example, products which were for myelofibrosis, when in the second stage, they're now trying to see if it works only for PV and ET. Did you ever think in that, or is that something which is excluded?
So, currently, our studies are not focused on PV. Like I had mentioned in our seminar, so the two real areas where we've identified telomerase biology to be most relevant are in myelofibrosis as well as myelodysplastic syndromes. And so our clinical programs are really focused in on those two diseases. We are exploring right now other disease types, and so mostly in the realm of these myeloid malignancies. Honestly, it's a great question for Faye Feller, who'll be coming in the next couple of weeks to talk. She has much more of a historical knowledge of what has been tested in the past. But our current focus areas of myelofibrosis, for example, and myelodysplastic syndromes, because we're a small company, we don't, we can't test everything. We can't go into every disease. But will definitely allow us, if there is an approval in myelofibrosis, for example, it'll allow us to explore other more closely related diseases as well. And so I think it is a timing issue as well as a resource issue for us. But it's definitely a question that we can go back and research a little bit further in terms of whether historically we've looked at that before. I'm not sure, to be honest. But I do know currently, we are MF and MDS, and then other heme malignancies like AML, for example, and other diseases that are closely related to MDS.
Yeah. Well, we are working fairly closely with MDS Foundation, because I always considered that basically MPN and MDS, we are brother and sister, basically. It's very, very close. And we will have in November, we will have a common European USA webinar, where we're just putting the two things together with two physicians, etc. So I think, there are a lot of things very, 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 very similar. Okay, well, the last question which I would have is, from your side, what could we do more for you? We always talk about the reverse. What could a farmer doing for us? But I think we have a source, which are the patients. We have big MF groups, we have big ET and PV groups. We have all these webinars, all the things which we are doing, the seminars. We are working with young people, with IAs, and so we're really covering everything. We are starting now our LATAM division, so the Latin America division, because there is a huge need in these countries there. But still, I would like to hear from you. What can we do more for you? What would you like where we concentrate more? Maybe which we simply don't know it and we didn't do it.
Yeah, no, it's a really great question. And obviously, one of our key goals is to really understand the patient experience and understand more about how, patients living with disease are impacted every day. I'll let Nicole speak to our plans. She's the head, the leader of our patient advocacy group. But I would say broadly, really just having a close connection with us, keeping us abreast of any sort of major changes within your own organization status, or what you're hearing regarding the landscape that impacts your patients, I think are really great things to do. And then I know Nicole has many efforts in terms of incorporating the patient voice into all of what we do. Not only our sort of materials and education efforts, but also potentially around informing even our clinical trial designs. And so I'll let Nicole speak a little bit to what she has planned, since she's the person who's leading all of those efforts.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you, Peter. Yes, in advocacy here at Geron, it is my role to bring that patient voice, Peter, into the organization in all different ways. So it could be, as Christian mentioned, in our clinical trial design process, protocol review, informed consent, criteria, all the things that our research team is doing to really create these trials, as Christian described, that it's in the best interest of the patient. In addition to that, it could even be the patient voice and the patient journey and what matters to the patient, as you've been describing during this session, making sure that I'm meeting with you, right, on a regular basis, which we do, to understand what's happening in the patient community. And I bring all of your knowledge and wisdom with you representing the MPN patient community and one of those representatives here in this world to bring that back into our company. And I let our leadership, like Christian, our research team, our communications team, our commercial team, know all the great things that you and your organization are not only doing, but the things that your patient community and people living with myelofibrosis, people living with MPNs are experiencing. Because your earlier comments were right on that if we don't develop a drug that helps patients and what their goals are, and what researcher goals are, we really need to come all together to do that, to have something successful. So it's through having, patient advisory boards, it's through education, and that's something, that we will continue to work on together, but is really important to Geron so that patients can have the knowledge and the education they need to really understand their disease. And if they can understand their disease, then how can we help them ask questions, to their physician so they can make choices and work with their physician to really improve their health and improve their lives. So that is a lot of what I do. So education and patient input is really critical, I think, for everyone's success.
This is basically our main goals, which
Right.
we are. So again, we have very similar ideas. It's that trend which we have started to bring more patient information towards the industry is it's very nicely how it is developing. I think I told you that we had at AEHA in Milano, to one of a major producer, we managed to have a meeting between the whole team, medical and patient advocacy group teams, and we managed to bring 4 MF patients in the meeting live. It was planned we talked for 30 minutes. Well, we talked for 1.5 hours
Yeah.
because there's so many questions which suddenly came up, but which we never thought of when we did hear about the stories which the people gives you, how difficult their life is, and how much they have to support. An MM patient, like possibly most of the cancer patients, we accept that we have to get used to certain things. We have a balance. We have medicines, but still we have a lot of symptoms. We have a lot of clinical trial, no, not clinical trial. We have a lot of side effects from the medicines, etc. And when you bring all these things together, if you tell him many times to a physician, he doesn't listen to you because he says, no, you're okay, because your analytical data are okay, which might be right, but the patient feels bad. So, this is something we talked about it already. This is what I would like to do with you as soon as possible. We just started our US operations, which will take a few months until it's up, but looks very promising because, we cannot bring European patients to the States. This is financially, I think we can use the money for different things. But we would like to present patients which can come to you and can talk to your people, which always has been my goal. So I think we're on the right way. I'm very, very pleased that I met you, all of you, and I'm very, very confident that this will help. That you will be able to find the right treatment for the MF and maybe other patients of MPN. Yeah. So if you don't have any other questions, I'm through about, we will have a second meeting where we can more details of the product. But for a moment, thank you very much. It was great to talk to you. Thank you very much for sharing the time. And it was very helpful. And well, you and me, Nicole, we have a lot of work to do.
We do have a lot of work to do. Thank you, Peter. Thank you to your organization and your team. Thank you, Christian, for joining us. I think we have a lot in common, and thank you for the time today.
It was great. Wish you a good day and the rest of the week. Yeah. Thank you.
Much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.